The audience is advised that the following segment involves themes which could be disturbing for some viewers.
For the past 18 months, Spotlight and Seven's podcast team has been investigating the tragic death of Amy Wensley, a young mother of two who was shot dead in her home in 2014. A coronial inquest delivered an open finding, unable to determine whether Amy's death was an accident, homicide or suicide. While police still believe it's the latter, Amy's family and friends say that's impossible. Tonight we uncover some new voices, people ready to step forward and speak their truth in the search of what really happened to Amy.
I met Amy when she was about 16 through one of my other friends. I was always at a house, we're having sleepovers, we were going out, we'd go camping or whatever it would be. It was good friendship.
Good buddies.
Yeah, and I miss it.
Why have you been fighting for so long?
How can I not? You know, I don't believe Amy took her life. That's not how she died.
Anna is Amy's auntie, and she's taken charge in the family's fight for answers about what happened to her beloved niece.
But why you? Why has it fallen to you to be the family champion?
Sorry.
Amy's family and friends argue that she would never abandon her kids.
I knew Amy as a young mother, and those children were so important to her.
She left behind two beautiful young daughters, Naya and Tay. They were only 6 and 4 years old at the time.
She will always put those children above herself, no matter what the situation is, no matter what's going on. It is those kids.
She didn't speak of suicide. She loved her daughters. It doesn't make sense.
To try and make some sense of it, let's go back to that tragic day, June 26, 2014. It's early afternoon, about 3 p.m, and Amy leaves home in her car to pick up her eldest daughter, Naya, from school. At 4 o'clock, David Simmons, who is Amy's partner and father to her youngest daughter, turns up after a long session of drinking with his mate, Gareth Price. Simmons has a mean streak, and their 5-year relationship has been strained by multiple heated and aggressive clashes. When Amy returns home with the girls, she sees David's drunken state and the arguing kicks off. She tells him that this time she's leaving with the kids. At about 10 minutes to 5, Amy does something that is truly difficult to understand. She takes a selfie in her bedroom with the gun that would ultimately end her life. A few minutes later, at 5 p.m, her mum rings.
She was hysterical when I called because it was a big fight that they were having. I say, hit you. He grabbed me by the throat and threw me on the ground. I've gone, what? That's when I said, pack his shit and the girls, get down here now.
Amy had already begun packing up her stuff and had the girls ready to go. But Amy would never get behind the wheel to take her kids to their nans. Instead, her partner David Simmons would do that job.
And then when I heard a car pull up, because her car's a bit loud. So when I heard the car pull up, I've gone to the front door and it was him. And he goes, oh, Amy's dead.
Those were the first words that came out of his mouth.
Amy's dead, she killed herself.
When you first looked at Amy's case, was there any particular thing that stood out for you?
The whole thing from the start did not ring true. The only thing that made sense was the report of the attending uniformed officers.
Professor Tim Ackland is an expert in the fields of anatomy and biomechanics. He's worked extensively with the justice system in criminal proceedings across Australia.
There is a lot of politics around this. I deal with the facts, and my job as an expert is to provide the best information I can to the decision maker.
He is putting his relationship with WA Police on the line by speaking with us now.
Even though the detectives shut the scene down and declared it a suicide, we're very fortunate that one of the attending uniformed officers took photographs at the time.
First to the scene and leading the charge was 60-year-old first-class constable Larry Blanford.
There was a live cartridge and a spent cartridge on the bedside table. And as I looked at Amy, there was blood spatter on the walls, and it was probably about as high as a chair.
One of Larry's offsiders, Constable Ian Roberts, was also gathering evidence and taking photographs.
As we got together, I said, this is suspicious. This is just not a suicide.
To me, I looked at the photograph and I wanted more information.
The red flag went up straight away.
Yes.
Evelyn Vicker was the WA Deputy State Coroner at the time of Amy's death.
Forensically, the photograph speaks for itself, but the difficulty we had was that the photograph was only macro blood splatter.
She engaged Professor Ackland to review the available evidence in the case brief.
They asked me if I could make a determination of whether Amy had committed suicide in the manner in which the detectives who were on the scene had suggested.
Detectives Tony Kirkman and Tom Weedman attended the scene, but they seemed incredibly disinterested in doing any investigation.
When the detectives arrived, they didn't want to go in. Kirkman did all the talking. He said, no, we don't have to go in because Ian says we've got photographs. Well, we'll just look at your photographs.
The photographs and some sketchy statements from David Simmons and Gareth Price were all it took for the detectives to overrule the constables and come to an extraordinary conclusion.
They said, it's non-suspicious, just like that. And Ian and I said again, no, you're missing the point. There's the whole story is that it is suspicious. They said, no, it's a suicide.
When Amy's case came across Evelyn's desk in 2018, all the missteps of the attending detectives came into focus.
The difficulty we had is there was no micro blood spatter in analysis because it had been destroyed.
So the coroner then decided that it would be in everyone's best interest if I were allowed to go back into that scenario and perform reconstructions of my own creation.
Tim Ackland was granted access to the actual crime scene location to reconstruct various scenarios and test the suicide hypothesis.
We were able to set the room up pretty much exactly the way it was as seen in those photographs.
And what conclusion did you come to?
My conclusion has always been, from that very first report that I did for the coroner, is that Amy Wensley did not shoot herself.
Because of the missteps, the errors, and the lost evidence along the way, Amy's case has been marked by a culture of silence from those who were sworn to protect. But now WA police bosses have taken that to the next level by enlisting the help of US expert Scott Roeder. Now, you might remember Scott, he's the crime scene specialist that Spotlight commissioned to recreate the exact details of Amy's death.
People lie Witnesses lie, but the evidence never lies.
This is not a suicide. I'm telling you, 100% not a suicide.
Scott concluded that suicide was impossible. But the police here have now had him sign an agreement, gagging him from making any public comments about what happens next.
Once Professor Ackland had completed his team's crime scene reenactments and delivered his report, Deputy Coroner Vicker felt an indictable offence likely needed to be prosecuted.
As a result of his report, I thought it was highly likely that she hadn't pulled the trigger herself, and as a result, I pulled the inquest, and then I sent it to the DPP.
Ultimately, the inquest into Amy Wensley's death was delayed to February of 2021. Evelyn Vicker would not preside over the hearing.
It's interesting how personalities can change the course of justice, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Imagine if you hadn't taken it through that coronial process, we may have a different result today.
What you got was an open finding, okay? Possibly, on the information I had at that stage, may have said an unlawful killing by person or persons undetermined.
Two of the person or persons at the centre of this mystery are David Simmons and Gareth Price. Unsurprisingly, neither were up for a sit-down chat, but Simmons has been summoned back to court on new charges since the last time we saw him.
Is there a particular part of Amy's case that troubled you more than others?
Yes, both psychologically and forensically, to me, Amy wouldn't have committed suicide at that point in time.
Why do you say that?
The children in the car, talking to her mother, the passport in the bag, all of those things to me say psychologically this mum was not looking to leave her children.
Research suggests that less than 1% of female suicides in Australia involve firearms. On the other hand, almost one woman a week is killed at the hands of someone they know. These statistics make you wonder how or why Simmons was never properly interrogated.
The longer this goes on, it troubles me more and more that I believe an injustice has been done. And it's part of the reason why I'm sitting here today.
Domestic violence is at the heart of Amy's story, and her family and friends carry the scars of a culture that is perpetuated by inaction.
I think with enough pressure, the truth will come out. They can't hold it in forever.
Amplifying the message around the injustices of Amy's case is something that our investigative podcast will continue to pursue.
Hopefully, Alison, Amy's case can shed a light on how we deal with domestic violence, full stop.
I was the one she used to run to, and I wasn't there to run to. I wasn't there for her to run to.
David Simmons has always denied having any involvement in Amy's death. You can listen to Season 2 of The Truth About Amy wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have any information about this case, please call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. If this story has raised any issues for you, help is available and the numbers are on your screen.